combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live. And we have another episode of Jimmy Rants in store for you here today. JimmyRants.com is the website. We start off over on Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, go follow at Livin' Low Carb Man on Instagram. And I talk to the people live down there. And then you can watch it on Instagram for 24 hours before it disappears. We then put it on YouTube, where you can access all the past episodes of all the Jimmy Rants over at YouTube. You can just search Jimmy Rants on YouTube, and you should be able to find most of the videos. And then we have a podcast called Jimmy Rants, which has the best of the best moments from all of the Jimmy Rants episodes. JimmyRants.com, again, is the website. And today's Jimmy Rants topic is one that I think is so sorely needed, especially at this time of the year. We're towards the end of the year. People will begin thinking about making New Year's resolutions, and they will have heard about this word called keto, because it's out there everywhere now. You're seeing it on mainstream television, you're seeing it in magazines, you're seeing it in newspaper articles, some of the top-selling books, the most listened to podcasts, they all talk about this thing called keto. So I want to talk to you guys about how to share about keto without looking like a crazed lunatic, because stop and think about it from your old way of thinking. So you come at this initially from the low-fat realm, where you thought fat was the enemy in your health. You thought whole grains were the holy grail, all of these things. And so if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, yeah, you can eat all the butter and eggs and have coconut oil and lard, and you can have all the meats that you want, and on and on and on and on and on about all this fatty food, you'd look like a crazed lunatic, right? So I think there's a tactful way about how to share about keto without jumping to all that fat, which I think fat is an interesting part of the ketogenic diet, but it's not the only part. It's the one a lot of people put attention on because they think it somehow is related to your cardiovascular health, and that it's going to harm you in some way. So that's one thing. And then there's also the focus on fat in a negative way in people's minds because it's so loaded with calories. So I think what you do is you start with the basics. You say, you know what? What is keto? It's low carb because we know the damaging effects that sugar have on the body. And so if sugar has damaging effects on the body, don't you want to eliminate all those sources, or at least greatly diminish those sources of sugar going into the body? And people are going to go, yeah, I think that's a great thing. That's when you shift the gears to say, well, did you know that all carbs, once they get into the bloodstream, pretty much turn into sugar? And I did a whole Jimmy Rants all about this recently. Go look that one up. But they do. And so then people go, well, wow, I guess I need to minimize my carbohydrates. And then you explain, yeah, it's the sugars, it's the refined carbohydrates especially, but even some of the so-called healthy whole grains that you're being told to eat. That whole wheat bread is not doing you any good because it's also spiking your blood sugar and insulin and inflammation levels. And so then, oh, okay. So then they understand that aspect of it. Then you say, you know what? There's another way the body can make sugar out of the food you eat that has nothing to do with your carbohydrates. Oh, wow, what's that? Yeah, so protein. You've heard protein is a really good thing. Oh, yeah, that's all I hear. Protein. Well, keto's not a high protein diet. It's a moderate protein diet, which means you can't have a 16-ounce ribeye steak and it not have a negative impact on your body unless your body can handle the glucose effects from that, okay? So then you can say, well, most people probably have some sort of glucose impairment in their body, which means your blood sugar is going to respond a little more than other people. There's this thing called insulin resistance. And obviously the nth degree of insulin resistance is type 2 diabetes. So you just start talking to people in that way and explaining it. And then they go, oh, okay, so the protein can turn to sugar in the body. Yes, it's a long G word. It's called gluconeogenesis. Don't worry about the word. Just know that when you eat more protein than your body can use, it will get converted into sugar. And so if you're trying to eliminate sugary sources in your diet, not just the sugar, not just the carbs, which turn to sugar, but also some of the protein, which can turn to sugar, okay? It's just some, but it's enough. That's why you need to moderate protein. And then the last element, if you're explaining this and trying to share keto with other people, is, it's all about when you remove carbohydrate from your diet, when you greatly minimize the amount of carbs you're consuming and you're moderating down on your protein, what is left in the diet for you to consume? The only thing left is fat. And so you can reassure them, all of the studies that have come out have shown that saturated fat especially, but really fat in general from real whole food sources, are not harmful to your body. They can't be harmful to the body. They're benign when it comes to raising blood sugar. They're benign when it comes to raising your insulin levels. They lower inflammation levels. But here's the biggest thing. They become your fuel source when you shift over from being a sugar burner, mostly carbs, to a fat burner, mostly ketones as your fuel source. And so if you don't eat enough fat, then you're depriving your body of energy, which will make you feel sluggish. So you can explain it in these kinds of terms so that when you start talking about adding butter to a meal, or you start talking about cooking full-fat meats in coconut oil or whatever, it's a lot easier buy-in once they understand the why. But I think a lot of times keto advocates go to talk about keto and they jump right in head first into this conversation of, oh, you got to load your body up with fat. And I think that's the wrong way to message this. I think if you stick with the basics and you say, you start with kind of a nice fatty protein source, and then you add vegetables to that if you choose to have vegetables in your keto, and then you add fat to those things. And that's a ketogenic diet. You keep it simple for people, then they start to grasp it. Now they'll start having questions for you. Well, what's wrong with whole grains? And that's when you talk about the inflammatory effects, when you talk about how they spike your blood sugar and your insulin levels. Well, I thought fat was going to clog your arteries. Well, that's when he explained, well, there are some bad fats, trans fats and vegetable oils, highly inflammatory. They cause a lot of damage to your blood vessels, whereas saturated fats and monounsaturated fats, they're pretty much benign when it comes to your health. They don't harm you. And in fact, they help the body get into a state where you're not hungry, where you feel satiated and your mood is calm. You start talking about the benefits on the brain. You can talk about the brain being made up of 70% fat. So you start making keto look normal, and people then get a buy-in, okay? And this is how you prevent being a crazed lunatic or being perceived as a crazed lunatic when you start talking about keto. And I've seen this, you guys. I've seen some of the ways that people misinterpret what keto is, and it's all stemming from how the message is being packaged. So maybe this today got you to thinking a little bit about how you communicate keto to other people, because if you do it in such a way that it's overwhelming for people with all of the, and maybe right stuff, but all of this stuff about adding fat and eating fat bombs and drinking butter in your coffee and all of these things that have become a part of the keto zeitgeist, so to speak, we need to be very careful about how this is being heard by newbies and how this is being heard by people that you're trying to communicate keto to. And I've even been the victim of it. People will say, oh, well, Jimmy Moore wants you to gnaw on sticks of butter. And if you're not gnawing on sticks of butter, you're not keto. I've never once told anybody to gnaw on sticks of butter, and yet there's that perception because of the way this has been put out there that people think that that's true. Okay? Let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Nini's Keto Kitchen. I can't back up my facts having a debate. My memory sucks. It works for me, and that's all I care about for now. Well, you still want to be able to share about it with other people. And don't worry about if you don't have all the science right. That's when you point to resources of the people who do have the science right. In the back of Keto Clarity, we have 186 references to scientific studies, if that appeals to people. I'll tell you a dirty little secret, though. Most people don't give a crap about the science part of it. They just want to know, will it work? Will I feel good doing it? And they want to hear it from a friend who has done it, feels good, and it worked for them. That's all they care about. Now, you'll get those science-minded people, but they're a very small percentage of the population. WJN Grap, my wife watches you all the time on YouTube. Great to see you live. Sugar is the devil. I agree. And welcome. Tell that wife of yours she is a highly intelligent woman for watching my show on YouTube and for marrying you. So there you go. Hello, Keto Naughty. Thanks for being here. Even when you're carnivore, Cindy, I'm assuming you're referring to the vegetables. Did you hear my caveat on vegetables? If you choose to eat them in your keto. Obviously, if you're carnivore, you're going to eliminate that aspect. You still have fatty meats, and you still add fat to that. So I hope that helps. So that's the bottom line, you guys. We're going to be sharing more and more about keto. You thought 2018 was a big year for keto, and it was. You ain't seen nothing yet. 2019 is about to ramp into high gear with so many new people coming into keto. And I'll give you a little inside scoop. My publisher was approached by Costco, and they said, we think this keto thing is the hottest diet trend we've ever seen, and we believe that so strongly, we want to bring in a lot of keto books in 2019. Now, they've got a lot so far. They've done a lot so far, and I've been very fortunate to have 3 or 4 of my books in there just this year. But next year, guys, Johnny bar the door, there's going to be so much interest in keto that even the businesses are starting to take a peek inside and going, hey, we gotta meet this demand. So part of that demand is new people coming to this, and they're going to want to hear about it. And so we're going to be the ones that share about it. We're the ones that have to make sure, Keto Naughty, that it's not just a trend, that they understand this is a lifestyle change, that this is something that you do as a permanent and healthy change for your health and your life. That's why sharing it without looking like a crazed lunatic is so critically important. It's one thing I'm going to try very hard at doing, is helping people know how to communicate this well. I've communicated it for a very long time, and so I kind of fall into a little bit of the trap of I've done it so much that I could repeat talking points. So I always try to keep things fresh as well, and have a new spin, maybe a new analogy. Even start thinking about, and you know those friends in your life and those people in your life that you have to talk to them in a certain way, and if you don't talk in their language, they won't get it. You could talk about shifting from sugar burner to fat burner all you want, but they don't get that. You've got to come up with something that will help them understand it. So hopefully what I've shared here today did that a little bit for you guys here today. And that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and we start off on Instagram, so go follow me at Living Low Carb Man. You can watch me live right here, or you can watch the replay on Instagram for 24 hours. Then we pop it over to YouTube, where it stays forever and ever, amen. We also have a Jimmy Rants podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find the Jimmy Rants podcast. Again, it's all housed at JimmyRants.com. Well, thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll be back again real soon. Bye.